Welcome back. Today I'm going to be diving a little bit deeper into the importance of movement patterns in solving chronic joint pain. So when it comes to solving chronic joint pain, one of the things that we have to keep in mind is that how we move is just as important as how much we move. And what happens a lot of times, especially in active people, is that if we move too much, but we're not paying attention to how we're coordinating movements, there's not an awareness into how we're moving, it leads to more impact on certain joints. And over time, this leads to joint pain. So again, remember, when we're solving pain with strength, the purpose of this whole philosophy is that we're learning to limit the impact that goes through our joints. And movement patterns are one of the best ways to limit impact that moves through your joints as you move throughout your day and as you start getting into the strength training world. So what we're going to do in this video is just dive a little bit deeper into how movement patterns can be used to solve chronic joint pain. So let's go ahead and get started. So first things first, let's first talk about what is a movement pattern. So in its simplest terms, a movement pattern is defined as how we coordinate movements to perform basic tasks. So how do we bend forward? How do we squat down? How do we take a step up? How do we reach something overhead or pull something closer to us? Those are all examples of movement patterns that we use every day. And while it seems pretty simple and straightforward, what happens as we get older is that we lose this coordination and we start to move in a way that places too much impact on joints that weren't meant to take such an impact. And that becomes a big problem. Over time, this leads to pain and dysfunction. I always like to say your body has this amazing ability to heal itself, but it's unrealistic for it to make a full recovery if we keep repeating the things that irritate it. It's like picking a scab, right? Where the body has a scab, it's healing it, but if you pick it off, the whole healing process has to get started again. And that's the same thing with any sort of joint pain. And so what we need to do is learn to improve movement patterns to limit impact that goes through the joints so that we don't keep re-aggravating it and fall into this pattern. So what we'll do now is show you how movement patterns can be used to limit impact on your joints. The very first way that improving movement patterns can help limit impact on your joints to solve chronic joint pain is by shifting the impacts of our daily activities, our exercise routines, or whatever it is you like to do, onto our bigger, stronger joints. So for example, our hips are big, strong, weight-bearing joints meant to handle high-impact activities. And what can happen is if we don't coordinate our movement right, instead of that impact going through our hips, they start going through our smaller joints, in particular our low back and our knees. And that's part of the reason those are two of the most common areas that people experience this chronic joint pain. So just to give you an example, let's take a look at bending down to pick something up. So if I'm doing this with a proper movement pattern, it looks like I'm sending my hips back, I'm coming down, and I'm reaching on the ground here. So my spine is relatively straight, my center of gravity is over my knees, there's not too much impact going through there, it's all in my hips. But what happens is as we get older and we just don't pay attention to the movements to bend forward or lift something up off the ground, let me know if you've done this. You're bending forward and reaching here. Well, now all that impact is on your low back. And while again, it's not a big problem in the short term, the longer this goes on, the more repetitions or the more time you spend in that position, the more impact is going through your low back and the more pain that you're experiencing. And so that's why it's really important that we learn to incorporate these movement patterns into our daily routine to keep that impact in our bigger, stronger joints and spare these smaller joints that aren't meant to take such high impact activities. The second way that movement patterns can be used to limit impact that goes through our joints is by helping us engage the proper muscles to take pressure off of our joints. So what's important to understand is our body has two stabilizing systems. It has a more active system, which is our muscles, and then it has a more passive system, which is our joints and our ligaments. In an ideal world, we want to rely on our more active system. Our muscles should be providing the stability of our body so that less impact goes through our joints and our ligaments, because that's where pain and injury happens. And so improving movement patterns help engage those muscle groups, take pressure off the joints. So an example would be lifting something up off the ground. Again, if I'm just coming down here and lifting here, similar to the previous example, that's all through my lower back. Now if I do the right movement pattern, send my hips back, bend the knees, create tension in my hamstrings before I lift, just like that, all that energy and impact that it takes to lift that weight is going through my hamstrings and my glutes, and it's not going through my lower back, my knees, or any of these joints that aren't meant to handle that activity. So learning to improve movement patterns helps engage the proper muscle groups to take pressure off of our joints. The third, and arguably most important way that improving movement patterns can help you solve chronic joint pain is by letting you build strength without stressing your joints. So here the philosophy is simple. The stronger you get, the less impact that goes through your joints, the less pain you experience, and the more confidence you have to enjoy your favorite activities. And these movement patterns, the hinge, the lift, the squat, the lunge, these are all foundational movement patterns that we use to build strength. And so by learning, practicing, and understanding these movement patterns, we can build strength without stressing our joints, because the last thing we want to do as we're getting stronger is move in a way that puts more impact on your knees or more impact on your low back. So improving movement patterns, one of the best ways to build strength, to protect your joints, and keep active. So there you have it. That's just a few of the reasons how improving movement patterns is going to be the most important thing you can do to solve chronic joint pain. And despite all this, unfortunately, these movement patterns are the most commonly overlooked and neglected aspects of treatment plans for things like back pain and knee pain. You wouldn't believe how many people I see who come to the clinic who've tried acupuncture, massage, chiropractic over and over and over to get some temporary relief, but they're still dealing with back pain, and their providers haven't mentioned improving movement patterns to limit impact that goes through their joints so they quit re-aggravating their injury and get out of this cycle. So that's just, again, another reason why I harp and I write so many articles on hinging, squatting, lifting, lunging, because if you can learn, understand, and practice these movements, these are the things that are going to save you from years of joint pain. So that's all I got for you today. Thank you so much for watching. Please leave any questions in the comments down below. My name again is Dr. Carl Baird, and I want to thank you for being here. Hey, it's Dr. Baird here. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube page to catch all our videos designed to help you build the strength and confidence to live active, healthy, and happy lives. You won't find it anywhere else.